Hey guys, welcome back to Blind Strike Exotics. I'm John and this is Baby Butter. She is my Super Butter, Super Pastel female. And I want to talk to you guys today about getting into ball python breeding. And this is really my 5 biggest, best tips for you guys to get started off on the right foot when you're starting off your collection and starting off breeding. So let's take a look. All right, number one is to first of all pick a gene you want to work with. Go on the Morph Market, search through all of the genes they have listed there, and see which patterns, which colors, what you like. If you're starting off a collection, you're probably not going to have a ton of money to work with. Maybe you want to buy a Mojave or a Lesser and get into the Blue Eye Lucies, because that's what I did. Butter is in the Blue Eye Lucy family, and obviously, as you can tell, this girl is all white and she has blue eyes. What I first saw, the first time I jumped in the ball python world was Blue Eye Lucy. That's what caught my eye. That was my first love. So I started to look around Morph Market and to learn more about how you make a Blue Eye Lucy. And there's a bunch of different ways to do that. That's a different topic for a different video. But I decided to start off looking for Super Mojave male. So that's how I got Shredder, who killed it for me last year and is doing so again this year. He's a Super Mojave banana male. So, he produced a bunch of bells for me last year, and he has 3 females this year that he's being bred to that are also bells. So everything that they create, they're all going to be Blue Eye Lucies. So pick a gene you like. Pick a gene that you fell in love with, that you want to work with, and run with it. Don't pick a gene that you dislike just because you think it's going to make you a couple extra dollars. Work with something that you really love, that's going to keep your interest, and that you're going to be excited about seeing. When the babies come out of the eggs. All right, number 2 is figure out your timeline. How soon do you want to breed ball pythons? Do you want to buy a bunch of hatchlings and wait up to 3 years for those females to grow up into being adults, and waiting 3 years until the breeding process starts, at which point it's probably still going to take you another 6 months for those females to get pregnant, to get gravid, and to lay the eggs, and for the eggs to hatch? Or do you want to start the year buying a male and buying a couple adult females that have already been proven out, that have laid eggs before, that successfully their babies successfully hatched? So you got to plan out your timeline. Buying adult females is usually more expensive than buying hatchling females or subadult females. But you can find some females that have been bred before that don't come at a high ticket price. Sorry, baby. So you need to figure out your timeline and prepare for it as well, because once a girl this size lays eggs, you could probably have 8, 10, 12 eggs coming out of them. So you need to have space for the hatchlings too. So you need to kind of plan out your timeline, figure out how long you want it to take you to get these beautiful snakes bred, which kind of leads into number 3. Number 3 is figure out your budget. These guys can get expensive very quickly. You can buy a single gene Mojave for probably around $100, $150. You can buy a Super Mojave anywhere from $400 to $600. So the prices can jump very high very quickly. If you're just looking at buying single gene animals, the majority of them are sub 200 unless they're one of the newer genes that just came out. If you're working with recessive genes, which are piebalds, clowns, albinos. Albinos aren't expensive anymore, but let's say pieds and clowns, because those are the 2 most common and popular. A piebald snake hatchlings maybe $300, $400. You can get a het pied or a het clown, but you're not guaranteed that their offspring are going to come out being a piebald or a clown visually, which again is going to be the topic of another video coming up soon when I continue my ball python morph genetic video series. So you need to really plan out your budget overall, because you need to obviously buy the snakes, but before you buy the snakes, you need to have their cages or housing. You know, if you're going to be breeding them, you're probably going to have a snake rack. What are you doing? So you need to have the snake rack ready. You need to have all the heating. You need to have all the food. And then you got to buy all the snakes too. So really think out your budget, and your budget really kind of meshes together with your timeline as well. If you don't have a ton of money, you're probably going to need to buy hatchlings, because they're generally a lot cheaper than buying adults, and especially females. And if you have all these upfront costs of buying, you know, thermostats and racks and the snakes, you gotta kind of spread out your money wisely. You can look for like racks secondhand on Craigslist locally. They don't come around too often. So really plan out your budget. Think about how much money you have right now and how much you want to spend on this project in the next month, year, 2 years, 3 years. You know, if you're strapped for cash and you want to start slow, you of course need to get the snake rack first. I would probably, if you're gonna, you know, spread this out over 3 years, I would buy the females first. Figure out what you want to breed, and then you can buy the male last, because typically, you know, males take about a year or so to mature to breeding size. You also usually want to spend more money on the male, because that male can breed all of his genetics to all of the females. So if you breed one male to 3 females, his super expensive genetic combos, they can be bred to 3 females, whereas if you buy an expensive female, she can only be bred one time per year at the most. So plan out your budget, factor that into your timeline, and make sure you have a good idea of what everything is actually going to cost you, because some of these prices, especially when you're starting off with nothing and you have to buy equipment, can get very expensive very fast. All right, number 4 is keep shopping for the right snakes. Assuming that you've already figured out what gene you want to work with. There's like almost 20,000 snakes on Morph Market, and it's a lot of snakes to wade through. You know, I try to look through there every day just to see what's going on, because if a female that's older, or subadult or adult, comes up on there that I haven't seen and I need to add it to my collection for future breeding purposes, I try to snag it. You know, you can't do that too often, but it happens. For you, starting out, you really want to search, and you really want to keep on it every day before you just get a trigger finger and buy, because you don't want to have buyer's remorse. And, you know, if you're settling to buy the snake in the first place, you know, if you're thinking to yourself, oh, this is the best I'm going to get, then, you know, you might buy it, pull the trigger, you get it home, and then the next best thing pops up a week later. So keep shopping. I was kind of doing this myself recently because I want to have some pieds to breed for next year. I didn't have any coming into this season. Since then, I was able to acquire 4 females that were subadults, all around 900 grams. And at the very most, I paid $750 for one of them, and on the low end, I paid maybe $500 for them. 3 of them are normal pieds, 1 is a pin pied, and that is a drastic difference in price from what they cost as proven breeder adults. But I didn't have a male, so I didn't need adults. I was looking ahead to next year and thinking, as long as they're ready to go by next year, that's fine by me. But the part where I went shopping around and really waited on it was finding the male. And I didn't know what I wanted. I wanted some Orange Dream Pied, But just orange dream pied by themselves are usually pretty expensive, just for that one extra gene in the pied. Um, and I didn't know which route to go until, after 2 or 3 months of looking, I found a male, a hatchling, that was a leopard lemon blast pied. Lemon blast is pastel and pinstripe, and my collection is very redundant. I have a lot of the same genes throughout it, but I loved the way the snake looked, and it actually was like half the price of what I had seen similar animals priced for on Morph Market over the last 2 months. There was one that came up, it was like $1,200, I think back in October of 2020, and I was like, that's just too much. Like, it's a beautiful snake, but just was too. I didn't want to spend that on that snake. And this one came up right around Christmas, and I paid $500 for it. That's a $700 difference in cost for an identical snake. Prices can fluctuate like that, so you definitely want to shop, and you definitely want to stick with a reputable breeder. The snake I bought was from a reputable breeder. I have no idea why there was such a price disparity. Maybe the other breeder thought what they had was more of a hidden gem than it really was. But I got a really good deal on it, and I have a great snake. I've had him for a week, and he's already eaten for me twice. So he's definitely healthy and definitely, already packing on the meals. So, keep shopping around. Don't just have a trigger finger. Make sure you know what you want to buy. Buy the right snake, like snakes, if you're getting into breeding, and be patient with it. You don't need to buy them today. You can wait a week, you wait 2 weeks. Pushing back your whole breeding plan a week or two or a month isn't going to, push your overall plan back too far. So be patient and buy the right snake. All right, and my last tip, the fifth tip, and really I feel like the most important, is buy adult females. I don't know if you really want to wait 3 years to grow a hatchling female ball python into an adult to the point where it can breed. As I said previously, males can reach maturity in a year most of the time. All of mine have. I haven't had a male yet that wasn't ready to go within a year. Females, it just depends. There's the 1,000-gram wall. They can hit that wall and just stop growing and stop eating, and they could take a while to get back on food. There's a lot of uncertainty when you're raising a snake from scratch. There's a lot of proven breeder females out there, and you can find some really good deals on them. Some of them are also extremely expensive, and going back to my pieds, I paid $750 or less for all 4 of my pied females, and they were all around 900 grams. If you want to buy an adult female breeder pied, I usually haven't seen them for less than $1,500. So that's half the price. So if you want to buy 2 subadult pied females for the price of 1 proven breeder and take a year to grow them up, that's probably the smarter way to go. But if you're buying 1 or 2 babies that were just born that are going to take 3 years, or you can buy 1 adult female, I would buy the adult female, because if you're able to breed snakes in the next 12 months because you have 1 adult female, that's a piebald, and she lays a nice clutch because she's already proven, because the last owner had already bred her, you could have 8 eggs out of that clutch. Those 8 eggs, assuming you're breeding a piebald male to her, if they all come out healthy, piebald babies, just plain piebalds, are selling for usually around $300 a piece. If you have 8 eggs, that more than pays for the cost of that female. Whereas if you buy 2 babies, it's going to take you 3 years to raise them up, so you have $1,000 or maybe $800 sunk into 2 female piebald babies, or $1,500 in an adult, and you could breed that female 2 to 3 times before those babies are ready to breed once. I bought my first year, I bought her. She didn't go for me last year, but I think that was because of the male that was paired to her. I bought Snow White Snake, who's a Mojave Lesser, Blue Eye Lucy. and I had Annie, which is my Lemon Blast female. I bought Annie maybe around 1,100 grams, so she was ready to go by the time I started breeding her that year. And Snow White Snake, I think she was already a proven breeder. But as a Blue Eye Lucy, Snow White Snake actually got her for like $600, which is, it was 2 years ago. I think their prices were a little lower back then. She only laid 3 eggs the first year, but I sold all 3 of those babies for $1,450. She was $600. The babies were $1,450 after I sold them. That's a lot of money. I could have bought a baby for $300 and took 3 years to raise it up. But that was the first year I had her, and she made me almost $1,500. She paid for herself, plus made me $900 extra dollars. And now she's at it again, put on a ton of weight again, and she's breeding again. Hopefully this year there are a lot more, healthy eggs out of the clutch. But waiting 3 years for that's a long time. So I suggest, and this goes back to number 4 about shopping around, maybe keep your eyes open for adult females that fit your breeding plan, that are the genes you like and the genes that you want to breed. They don't come up as often as the hatchlings do, but they do come up. And I have found quite a few gems, some that I didn't want to pay for and didn't, and some that I did. If you've watched any of my other videos and seen my top 5 biggest ball pythons, the top 2, I think, at the very least, were part of a collection that I bought. They're almost 4,000, one's over 4,000 and one's almost 4,000 grams. Proven breeders. And after I bought the collection, which was like 6 or 7 snakes, the price broke down to them being like $500 or $600 a piece. That's a 10-pound snake that I bought for $500. So great deals do come up on adults. So keep your eyes open for it. Keep shopping around. Make sure that the genes you want to buy, and buy adult females. The male doesn't matter as much because they typically mature in about a year or so, maybe even less, depending on how well they eat. But the females take up to 3 years. So, unless you really want to push that timeline out to 3 years, unless you really want to have that hatchling female and raise it up from a baby, buy adult females. They're able to breed. There are no health issues. That they're feeding well. That they've successfully had clutches before and the babies all came out nice and healthy. You can buy a hatchling and, maybe it's not able to lay eggs. Maybe you raised it for 3 years and you realize that this female lays duds. That would be a terrible thing to invest your time and money in. So if you're just starting off, I think the biggest thing to do is to look at buying adult females. And not only that, it gets you practice too. You don't want to be trying to incubate an expensive clutch of eggs that you've waited 3 years and not have any experience on how to incubate them. If you get even just a single gene Mojave or single gene Enchi female and breed them in 1 year and have some practice incubating the eggs, that goes a long way as well. So start off buying at least one adult female. Get the practice in. Get the practice, placing the male in the tub. Get the practice in knowing, what a lock looks like. Get some practice in trying to figure out what ovulation looks like. Trying to track the pre-lay shed. And then most importantly of all, the hardest part is incubating. So get the practice in. Buy at least one adult female and try to breed that female within the first year so you have practice so that, 2 years later when you have several females and several cool ones that you're successful and know what you're doing. All right, those are my 5 tips to help get you started breeding ball pythons. Pick a gene you want to work with, look through Morph Market, figure out what really piques your interest and really gets you excited about the possibilities. Figure out a timeline. How long do you want your breeding process to take? Do you want to buy all babies and take your time, get into it, and take up to 3 years to breed them, or do you want to breed them next year? Do you need to buy some adults? Figure out your budget. Know how much you want to spend, and not just on the snakes. You need to buy all the equipment too. You need to have the thermostats. You need to have the heating. You need to have the enclosures. You need to be able to afford the food bill and the heating bill. So you have to do your budget. Keep shopping around. Figure out, after you figure out what jeans you want, don't buy right away. Keep a watch on Morph Market. Figure out what the actual, like, a good price for a snake is, because I've seen some snakes that are just super crazy expensive and they shouldn't be. And then I've seen some that are so cheap that I just thought to myself, I need to buy that and get it in my collection, because even if it's a 1 or 2 gene animal, having an adult female that I paid $300 for that's bred before, when you're building a collection, really, really, really helps you when you're trying to pinch pennies, or save money or afford a more expensive snake. And the last one is buy adult females. At least one, just to get started. Females take up to 3 years to raise to adulthood, and getting a female in your first year that's already been bred, that's proven that you can breed back to a male and have some experience trying to breed the snakes and experience incubating the eggs. Not only that, selling them. I mean, if you're breeding snakes, you're breeding them to sell them. You have to have some practice selling them too. So buy adult females. I have a very limited amount of hatchling females. I have a whole rack of 12. That's all subadults, and I'm okay with subadults because typically you're buying them at an age where it takes maybe a year to grow them up. But I have 2 hatchling females that I bought to grow out because you can't find adult females with those genes. And that's the only reason that I buy hatchling females, is because I can't find females that are subadults or adults that have those genes. Other than that, I only look to buy adult females. So that is my biggest tip. The most important tip, I feel like, is buy adult females. So that is it for today. Baby Butter here, and her pretty eyes. She needs to go back in her tub. She just was paired up to Shredder for like 2 days straight. So I'm sure she wants a little break. Doesn't want me bothering her anymore. So that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by, and please remember to hit the bell and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you later.